Yeah, the perils of going first. Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome once again. Thank you for coming in to the second day of today's conference. Thank you for inviting me to be first of two plenary speakers this morning, and especially a bit of shout out to UPKRC for giving me this opportunity to do so. Now, before we begin, let me first do a bit of a background regarding what motivated me to do this particular context that we're going to share this. I'm going to share with this morning. Now, for starters, corporate governance is one of the biggest, one of the hottest topics in business research right now, and I'm going to elaborate on that later. And so everybody's talking about it, so on and so forth. But one of the more personally triggering or personal motivations I've been sharing with a couple of peers here earlier this morning was that what I've observed with SM Entertainment and HYBE over the past 2 years actually went everything against what I've learned about business. So yeah, a lot of it's been good. A lot of what they did made me question what the heck did I learn and what the hell am I teaching? So that's the bigger motivation for it. So to start us off, we're gonna just lay it out again. We're gonna have two case studies here. One again on SM Entertainment, involving the battle for control between Kakao Corporation and HYBE. And secondly, we'll talk about the ongoing, for those of you who are up to date with what's happening, the ongoing controversy between HYBE Corporation and its subsidiaries, ADOR. So, it's moving on to the introduction part. So, like I said, the rationale for this is all about K-pop becoming more and more global, how companies are actually run. How our companies actually run, they should be more scrutinized. So doing business with these firms, especially international scene, would eventually demand some generally accepted rules and norms. Okay, so you want to play in the international field? I'm sorry, you're not the one making the rules right now. You need to follow. And that being said, as I mentioned earlier, corporate governance is currently one hot topic in business research. The plethora of research in the field of business and management over the last few years has been geared towards ESG, corporate governance, CSR, and all sorts of things. So I kind of also figured this is going to be my stab at doing it in the context of something that I love to do, which is on Korean wave research. And of course, so that's the three. And then for the motivations for this study, like I said, massive movements in the K-pop industry. So first of all, when the story first exploded in February of 2023, I kind of asked, what made SM a prime target? Like, why SM Entertainment? Why not JYP? Why not YG? Like, why did HYBE set its sights on SM? Well, aside from the fact that admittedly I am an SM stan myself, right? Yeah, very happy that SPA won big this year. Okay, but on the other hand, also with HYBE versus ADOR, when Big Hit became HYBE, one of the biggest transformations that we saw in the industry was its adoption of what they call the multi-label system. Something that we did not see with the other existing companies. At least not in this scale. Okay, not in this scale. To the point wherein, if you're in the business discipline, the best way to describe HYBE's growth would be it's like Unilever and Procter and Gamble. It grew by acquisition. So when it went public, apparently when Big Hit transformed into HYBE, when it went public, it used much of those proceeds from the IPO to acquire these other companies like Source, Pledis, etc. Even Belief. Okay. So those are two motivations for the study. Now let me introduce to you the key players in this research. Of course, first of all, SM Entertainment. Okay, we know that's it's the institution. Okay, institution. And sorry to say, okay, I will dare say it's SM who paved the way. Okay, yes, I am putting myself on record on that as an academic. Okay, yeah, but yeah, I mean, SM is one of the, because here's the thing, SM's system of idol production is the one that made it everything what we know today. How idols are produced, managed, and distributed, it was SM's system that did that. Okay, all the way from HOT. Okay, if you even know who HOT is. Thank you for nodding. I thought I was the only one. I was afraid. Okay. Alright, so that one. So Lee Sooman, founder of SM Entertainment, he was the one who instituted everything or almost everything what we know today about idol production, management, and distribution. Then we have Kakao Corporation, undoubtedly one of the biggest conglomerates in Korea. You probably heard them in the news recently as one of those companies that were criticized because when the martial law declaration happened, networks went down, like communications went down, and Kakao attributed it to network overload. Simply too many messages being thrown around back and forth. So Kakao Corporation is like, if you have Kakao Talk, yeah. Okay, so and incidentally as well, Kakao under one of its subsidiaries, Kakao Entertainment, is also one of the biggest stakeholders in the K-pop industry because they have Starship Entertainment. Then you have IC Entertainment with the boys, but the contract expired yesterday. Okay, so yeah, and other agencies. Then of course we have arguably the biggest kid in the block right now, HYBE. Yeah, so aside from Big Hit and Bangtak Sonyedan, which of course gearing up for 2025, okay, with a much anticipated comeback of Bangtak Sonyedan. Okay, we also have Plenary Entertainment, which has 17. Okay, ngayon sila naman, turn naman nila ngayon, like gradually they're going to the military as well. So I mentioned that for a specific reason, but they also have Source Music, and Source Music, eyebrows raised. For those who know G-Friend, you know why. Okay. But yeah, so again, arguably the biggest kid in the block right now. Okay. And then we have the subsidiary of the moment, okay, ADOR. Okay, with its ongoing controversy with new jeans, this one has sparked the one that has that generated a lot of conversation when it comes to what's going on. Okay? So we do attribute a lot of things with the door. So these are the four big players that I will be sharing with you this morning. So the other players that I've highlighted here would first of all will be Aligned Partners Capital Management. Now, Aligned Partners Capital Management is an activist hedge fund. Okay? It's an activist hedge fund, okay, that owns 1.1% of SM Entertainment. Okay? But they were the ones who loudly demanded for SM Entertainment to sort itself out. Okay, we'll have a lot of I'll elaborate on this later. And of course we have Belief Labs. So this is one of the parties that then ADOR CEO Min Hee Jin accused of plagiarism in favor of its girl group Eyelid. Or Erik. How do I pronounce it? Eyelid. Okay, thank you. Okay. Then we have Dolphiners Films. Okay, Dolphiners Films is a producer, collaborator with New Jeans for a lot of New Jeans music videos. Their statements, which I will share later, prove to be vital as well with the ongoing controversy. And lastly, of course, Source Music. Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier. So before we go into the exciting part, let's go first to the boring part. Just run down on some theoretical concepts. All right. So first of all, what is corporate governance? Okay, corporate governance is basically a way to watch out how your company is being managed. Okay, so there are supposed to be specific roles depending on who you are or what you are within an organization. Okay? And these principles, these roles, these definitions are supposed to be followed or assume that you're following them. Okay? It's a big thing now. Okay? It's a big thing now because it hopes to make organizations more accountable for their actions. Okay, so that's one of the biggest buzzwords right now in business. So these are other functions of corporate governance. You have of course the involvement of your board of directors. You have your policies and procedures. You have your transparency and accountability. You have risk monitoring and control. You have your legal and regulatory environment, etc., etc. Okay, so how do we explain all of this? Okay, so I'll run down a bit on some of those theories that supposed to govern corporate governance. Of course one is agency theory. Okay, so agency theory states that board of directors should be independent of management. Simply that. Like what management does. Okay, board of directors has nothing to do with it. Apparently, in Korean entertainment industry, that's not happening because as you can see, most of the shareholders or most of the members of the board of directors are also running the day-to-day operations of these companies. Yeah, even before, when Lee Sooman was very active, very hands-on, not only in strategic decision making, but in the actual production of groups. Okay? But he was also the single biggest shareholder of SM Entertainment at 17%. Okay? But he was for those of you who watch SF Town videos, you see him backstage hugging the idols. Right? That's how involved it is. Apparently, agency theory says otherwise. Okay, so that's an example of it. Okay. So that's the 10. Okay. So moving forward, you have resource dependency theory, in which board of directors is the way for the organization to reduce its environmental interdependency and uncertainty. So serving as a link between the organization and external environment. Okay, so what does that mean? You bring in directors so that you can have better access to resources. Okay, or you acquire companies. Yeah, you acquire companies in order to have access to better resources. So that's one that could probably explain why HYBE already is the biggest kid in the block at that time was intent in buying SM Entertainment. Okay, basically they want to get hold of ESPA. If you want to think about it, but so something like that. So why? Because they knew at the time ESPA was going around breaking records, topping charts, in which they couldn't do. Okay? So they wanted to get access to those resources that enabled them to do so. Right? So I mean, at least that's the assumption. So I guess that's good. That's probably one way to explain application of resource dependence theory. Third is stewardship. So ideally board of directors should collaborate with management in giving advice and enhancing strategic discussions. So that's another argument. If agency theory does not work, then stewardship theory can. But again, it's more of collaboration, not like specific members of board of directors getting themselves involved in the day-to-day operations of an organization. So if you actually look into management structures of these K-pop companies, you'll see a lot of blurred lines, and it was also very shocking to see that as well. Now, managerial now that's about the separation of board of directors and management. And now the next three theories I'll briefly discuss is more about it's going to be more about the who has the power, who has control. So the first one is managerial primacy. So ultimately, it's supposed to be the managers who are in control of the day-to-day operations of the corporation. Owners are out of it, but again, we don't see much of that with Korean entertainment companies. Who the owners are also exert, at least visibly, exert also control over the organization. For example, Kakao. Okay, until recently, I honestly did not know how many agencies were under Kakao. Like I completely forgot that Starship Entertainment, even though I'm a second generation fan, I should know this because of Sistar. Okay? Back then, right? I didn't know it was under Kakao. Okay? I didn't know that another entertainment company who holds one of the biggest, if not the biggest soloist in Korea, EDAM Entertainment, is also under Kakao. Take a guess who that soloist is. IU, thank you. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So in that case, Kakao kind of like falls under this. Okay, managerial primacy. Okay, even now that they have control over SM Entertainment, we didn't see much like Kakao really meddling in the day-to-day affairs of SM Entertainment. Now the other source of power is shareholders. Okay? So, but the problem with shareholder primacy is that if there are many, that you have many shareholders, or there's no clear majority of shareholders in a company, then this is very weak. Okay, this is very weak. But as I've said earlier, aligned partners who owns only 1.1% of SM Entertainment was managed to defy this and exercise shareholder primacy in their demands to hold SM Entertainment accountable, okay, which triggered this entire mess in 2023. Okay. And then lastly, director control. So probably this is the one that could explain everything. Like why we see a lot of these Korean entertainment companies actively involved in idol affairs. Okay, so this can explain why. It's because this theory emphasizes on the control of the organization with the board of directors. So that being said, okay, let's now go to the first case on SM Entertainment. So this one summary of the issues involved. So like I said, aligned partners called for a review of SM Entertainment's contracts with Light Production. Light Production supposedly is the third-party organization that handles the album production, the album production and distribution of their idols. Okay. Here's the tricky part. Light Production was owned by Lee Sooman. Okay, so ironically, the biggest shareholder of SM Entertainment at that time also had exclusive contract for the production of albums, and the production and distribution of albums. And he was charging a gross 6% of revenues. Yeah. So you think idol contracts were already bad? Back then. In this case, apparently, Lee Sooman was milking his own company. In sense. So when that got exposed, everything, and it was reported to the media, SM leadership announced then a new strategic direction. Okay? Ironically, one of the co-CEOs of SM Entertainment at the time was a nephew, okay, of Lee Sooman. Okay, so this is perceived as an attempted breakaway from the old guard. Okay, the SM Entertainment was split into two factions. The younger ones who wanted, if you recall, this was also the announcement of SM 3.0 back then. It was an obvious breakaway from Kwangya. Okay, this is going to be an obvious breakaway from Kwangya at that time. And as a result, Kakao Corporation and HYBE Corporation then engaged in a quote-unquote bidding war to acquire significant control over SM Entertainment. Okay. So what I'm going to show you here, okay, but for the interest of time, I'm not going to go through each one, is the timeline of events, significant timeline of events that would highlight what happened. And eventually, as we know now, Kakao Corporation won that battle. But one thing I would highlight here are two things. One, when HYBE Corporation made a deal with Lee Sooman for his shares, he's gonna get 14% of Lee Sooman shares. Okay. They offered, and then they announced that they wanted another 25% of SM. However, it was HYBE shareholders themselves that said no, we don't want. Okay, we don't want. Number two, what I want to highlight here, during this bidding war, SM, which is publicly listed in the Korean Stock Exchange, saw its share price reach over 110,000 won per share. Okay. And take note, pre-sale, it was hovering around 90. It was hovering around 90,000. Like 90,800. And then HYBE offered to buy Lee Sooman shares at 120. Okay, 120,000. Okay, which is going to be crucial later on. Okay, but eventually at the end of the day, okay, Kakao Corporation won that battle. Okay, and that almost 40% share that they hold now with SM Entertainment is split between Kakao Corporation, which holds 20%, and the other half, and then the other half is other half with Kakao Entertainment. It's one of its subsidiaries. So this is the aftermath, how it looks like. Okay, this is the aftermath, how it looks like. The one on the left is showing the ownership structure before the sale, and then the one on the right shows you after the sale. Here's where it gets funny. Okay. In January of 2024, Kakao founder Kim Bong-soo, was being investigated on stock manipulation charges exactly involving the SF deal. All right. But at the same time, Kakao decided to replace key executives of SM Entertainment. Why? Because they were committing exactly the same poor corporate governance actions that 1 year ago, aligned partners were accusing current leadership of SM Entertainment. So essentially, as far as the top management goes, nothing changed. Right? Nothing changed. In May of 2024, HYBE sold 25% of its shares with SM Entertainment at a disposal price of 90,000 Korean won. Remember, they bought it at 120 1 year ago. Now they're selling it at 90. So essentially, they're selling it at a loss. So questions raised. Bakit? Why? Where? Right? And then in August of 2024, they were indicted. The Kakao executives involved in the stock manipulation charges were indicted. So that's how messy it got. And again, it raises a lot of questions regarding corporate governance structures here, and corporate governance mechanisms in Korea. So this now happens here. Now the question is, will it invalidate the SM deal? Nobody knows. A lot of experts are saying it won't. It won't. But of course, that being said, probably the worst case scenario right now is that penalties will be imposed as a result. Okay, so we go to case number 2. Okay. Probably this one will be more involved, like more people will be more involved here, more informed here. So summaries of the issues involved. It all started when when we heard the news that HYBE Corporation ordered an internal audit with ADOR. Okay. But then, as a reaction to that, Min Hee Jin went public over it in a tell-all that lasted what, 2 hours, maybe more, right? And a tell-all including screenshots. Screenshots, very, very. For the Filipino audience here, screenshots is a very fresh memory. Okay. Okay. For those of you who are updated in Filipino celebrity news, okay. Screenshots are very, including here. So screenshots are not new here, guys. Screenshots are like Min Hee Jin also exposed screenshots of conversations with ADOR and HYBE executives here. And after several court filings and rulings, they moved to replace the CEO and board of directors with executives as well. Now, that being said, this is the timeline. Right? This is the timeline, and obviously this is not yet over. Okay, this is not yet over. Right? So what we're seeing here is a confusion wherein, because here's the thing that I'm really confused at when I was looking through it. Okay? Looking through it. Because of how HYBE is structured, okay, focus on here, on the labels. Okay, focus on here on the labels. Because of here, unless you do a deep reading of how they work, the initial impression would be, or as they also publicly said, HYBE will leave these labels independently. They would leave them alone. But it gets tricky because, as we've probably seen with Sakura Lesarafin, she signed the contract with HYBE, not with Lesarafin's agency, which is Source Music. Right? So apparently, even with New Jeans, their contracts are with HYBE, the parent company, not with ADOR. Okay. So when I saw that little tidbit, is this true? Because so does this mean that there are actually 2 contracts, given with what New Jeans just said last week? Right? So that's where one of the confusions that should be made clear. Who actually is contractually bound with who? Right? Who actually is contractually bound with who? And for that matter, what does this mean? Like an idol who passes his or her training stage would sign up with HYBE, and then HYBE would decide which label he or she would go to. Is that the case? I'm honestly asking. Okay, Okay, so that's one of the things that popped up in my mind when I was going through this. Okay. Now, as for the aftermath of it, so as we've seen, they publicly issued a notification that they basically issued an ultimatum. Min resigned from ADOR. Okay, that was a surprising turn of events because that basically torpedoed New Jeans' conditions to stay. But that being said, they left. Now, actually, a couple of people were already asking me earlier about this. It's like, what will happen now? Yeah, what will happen now? So obviously, speculations about will go because for one, it's obvious that ADOR holds the intellectual property on the group name, New Jeans. So technically, they can't promote as New Jeans. Probably they can promote as members, as individual members, but they can't technically use the name because they said they're going to terminate the contract. In the same way now that IST company is holding the rights to the name The Boys. Okay, The Boys. Okay, so therefore, when now they're in the middle of negotiations. Okay, to acquire the intellectual property of the group name, the other company. But they already announced as well that should that not happen, they will just rebrand. Okay, they would just rebrand, which I suspect is also the same thing that happened if you guys are familiar with a boy group Beast, and then they rebranded to Highlight, right? Okay. Okay, so yeah, that did somebody capture that on film? Sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, so those are the things that are open-ended questions right now, in which hopefully in the next few months, next year, we will find some answers as well. So some of the reactions now that I see here, some of the reactions that I would here that I would like to share as well. For one, definitely these two cases has been a classic example of like expectations versus reality. Okay. Theory says one thing. Okay, theory says one thing. Reality says otherwise. Okay. Incidentally, I'm actually in the risk of self promotion right now. I am actually holding a course in the School of Business, an elective on the management of economics of the Korean wave. And so these are one of the things that my students are always shocked as to how cumbersome management of Korean entertainment companies actually are. So that's one. Second, okay, and in homage to you, okay, we are in UP right now, and in homage to UP culture, okay, my second reaction is discuss. All right. Okay. All right. Why SM Entertainment? Okay. Why are Kakao's and HYBE's respective motivations to acquire SM Entertainment? Okay, so why? You already, like, again, I said earlier, HYBE, you're the biggest kid in the block right now. You own the rights to some of the hottest and most profitable groups that are. Some of them have really great potential had you pushed them on. Okay, we were talking about Promise 9 earlier, so okay, but now they let them go. Okay, so that's a big loss. Okay, but again, nothing would. If you talk about HYBE and losing girl groups, nothing would top G-Friend. Okay, what they did with G-Friend. Okay, but yeah, so that's. But again, going back, that's the first thing. Okay. Second discussion point. How does HYBE's multi-label system actually work? Okay. Why are there perceived infighting between and amongst HYBE labels, especially given shedding light on that accusation that Hani made in the National Assembly hearing, wherein a manager of ILIT told the group members to ignore New Jeans members whenever they're in the premises of HYBE. So why is there a need for something like that? This is what I like about SM Town, by the way, right? Like you at least on screen and stage, you see them type. Okay, you see it. You want to see an example of that? Watch the latest episode of Game Caterers. Right. First to fifth generation. I dare you, find me another label that has something like that. Public. And then, of course, lastly, how much truth is there to all of the respective rumors that we've seen? Because obviously, at the end of the day, okay, it's very difficult to separate fact from fiction. Especially in K-pop fandoms, where we are so in love with creating our own stories, our own interpretations, our own interpolations of how a particular issue is happening. So where do we separate the fact? Where do we separate the fiction? Okay. So to conclude, okay. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that is exactly designed to bring in the shock value. Right. This case study research unpacks the plethora of corporate governance issues hounding the K-pop industry. Okay. And okay, with these, thanks to these two issues, we now have knowledge of how complex, how convoluted, how confusing these ownership structures are. Yes, we love our idols to death. We love our favorites to death. But the fact of the matter is, how their fates will spin off still lies with the company. Okay? Unfortunately, unless we're Korean citizens who can legally purchase shares of stock, All right, in these companies, we can't do much about it, even though we're end customers. Okay, even though we're end customers. Okay. This should lead to more stakeholders, including us fans, to be more discerning about how entertainment companies are run. Okay. And to end, let me share a quote here. Okay. That we cannot be mere consumers of good governance. We must be participants, and active participants for that matter. And then once we feel that we are equipped enough, we must be co-creators as well. Okay? So that we can continue having this discussion and having more well-informed decisions and tweets, posts, and whatnot, okay, to bring some sanity in what's happening right now, at least in the fan side of things. All right. So with that, thank you very much for your attention.
Ayan. Thank you very much, Dr. Capistrano, my fellow second-gen fan. So it was a very interesting talk, learning more about the big companies and not just about the idols that we love so much. We have around 25 minutes for Q&A. So a lot of time to ask questions and clarify some things. So if anyone has a question, I already see someone standing over there. Yes, please introduce yourself.
I have been bracing for this.
And your affiliation, please.
So I won't necessarily fully introduce myself because you will do that later. But I'm Tom. I'm about to speak next. Erik, thank you so much for the presentation. It was wonderful. And it's really good to see someone discussing these things within the context of theoretical kind of understandings and who actually understands how an industry works, as opposed to drawing upon fan logics of how an industry works. And I say that quite pointedly because, as we were saying before, one of the issues that is clouding this discussion in public is that there's a lot of misinformation that circulates, particularly amongst international fans, about the ways in which K-pop companies are structured and how they're structured as corporate entities. And that, some of these issues are, whether who is right or wrong is not the issue here. What the issue is that as companies, this is a clear instance of mismanagement, regardless of who's right, who's wrong. And I think that that's often neglected in fan discourse. What I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on, though, is that when, especially when the HYBE, quote-unquote, takeover of SM was first kind of emerging within media discourse, myself, as well as many other kind of experts, began speaking and reflecting on the potential and the concerns over the kind of monopolistic practices of HYBE. So, you've talked a lot about how corporate governance works and these issues in corporate governance, but one of the issues that within the kind of broader context of the Korean kind of economy and the Korean kind of industries in general is a lack of a robust kind of control of monopolization. I mean, we have the chaebol system and so forth, which is the chaebol system, for those of you who aren't familiar, is actually just the zaibatsu system of Japan kind of continuing. That was dismantled in Japan after World War II, though of course it re-emerged in other ways by the Kadetsu system. But what we see here is HYBE is monopolistic. And within kind of traditional theories of kind of good corporate governance and good kind of economic systems and management and so forth, monopolies are bad. And there's often a need for state intervention in order to break down monopolies. We see this often happening in the United States, for instance, with, for example, the breakdown of, the steel company, right? Back in the 19th century. Anyway, I want to hear your thoughts on the intersections between, is there a need for reform of law here? Is there not just labor law? I mean, that's a separate issue with regards to Hani and so forth. But part of the issue here is a lack of kind of shareholder scrutiny of monopolistic practices, and also a lack of desire on behalf, particularly the current government, in addressing some of these problems legally. So I take the point that shareholder activism is important. Isn't some of this enabled by the legal structures of South Korea that facilitates and indeed encourages this sort of behaviour from managers and directors.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, yeah. Incidentally, in my reading of the turn of events, one reporter, one opinion writer in a Korean circulation, I forgot what it is, actually pointed out that even in the way HYBE strategized on how to enter SM Entertainment, meaning, let's say, getting that first 14% share of Lee Sooman, why not get all 17? Why not get the entire 18%? Why does it need to be split within the first 14% and then later on get the other 4% as was planned? Of course, you can always say that, we can't raise enough money at the time. Yes, right? But somebody then was speculating that the 14.8% was just enough so that it would not get scrutinized by the Korean authorities. Because apparently, if you make an acquisition, there has to be a certain amount before a deal has to be scrutinized by the Fair Trade Commission, for example. So what HYBE offered at that time, given the prevailing stock market prices, was just under that threshold. It was just under threshold. Now, of course, my conspiracy side would tell me, that's a conscious effort. That was a conscious strategy, right? So, yeah, because like I said, I also looked at HYBE's financials during that time. They're financially healthy. Cash reserves at the time were a little bit problematic, but they can raise enough money for sure. But that's the first one. So that being said, in terms of, let's say, laws like that, probably those are needing update. Like they could probably need to update it because because here's the thing, when it comes to regulations on the Korean pop industry, I honestly have not seen a reform that was as significant as the one that they did back in 2010, 2011 with the Bang Sihyuk case. Right, with the contracts. So guys here, before, contracts were as long as 13 years. Okay, and the renewals were as long as 7 years. The reason why now it's only 7 and 3 is due to what happened with Bang Sihyuk. So that's it. But after that, I have not seen a very significant intervention at that level. So probably, again, it's high time that we have something like that. Unfortunately, will the government have the balls to do it? I don't think so. Why? Because they've been putting HYBE in the pedestal ever since the Korean wave got its grip in America. Yeah, as long as Bangtang Songyadan, as long as 17, all of the HYBE groups are making waves in North America, especially now anticipating 2025 with the big comeback. Okay? I don't think the government was going to do anything to touch HYBE. I don't think at all. Unfortunately. Right. So, okay. But heck, even before, why am I pessimistic about it? Because even before, with when SM Entertainment, and SM Entertainment wasn't that big, right? SM Entertainment, even with the Bang Sihyuk case, did they get anything more than a slap at the wrist of it? None. And they did it with their biggest boy at that time, Bang Sihyuk. Right? Nothing more than a slap at the wrist. Even though I'm not even sure if this is true, right? But because there were things that were circulating around that there was actually an Interpol red flag on Lee Sooman himself. Right? It was persistent. Even until now, it's still persistently being there. So, no, but is the Korean government doing anything about it? None. Yeah. Even with the YG, even with Yang Yong-sok. You see all these CEOs of the original Big Three being embroiled in so many different controversies, and they're not getting any more than a slap at the wrist. Right? So unfortunately, yes, I think there should be a call for such reforms, but will the government have to do anything about it? as long as like they're putting K-pop at a pedestal we're in, they're saying that it's their doorway to the rest of the world. It contributes a lot to the economy. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Hyundai Research Institute is doing a lot of these studies that props up K-pop and such. Despite one of our colleagues also saying that no, K-pop isn't the biggest popular culture artifact is contributing to Korea, despite what popular opinion says, it's actually video games, right? It's actually video games as a big contributor in terms of pop culture category. Yeah. I see a lot of shocked faces. Yes. It's not K-pop, it's not K-drama, it's video games. Okay. K-pop is small peanuts. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the Chinese market is big. One company alone, come to us. Employs a lot of Korean expertise and technologies. Yeah.
It's the one thing that isn't bad.
Other questions? Yes. Please introduce yourself and your affiliation. Mention your affiliation. Thanks.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
I'm Anne-Louise De Leon, a teacher 3 at Luwaca National High School. So I'm also presenter yesterday. So my question is about second generation, about legal and agency issues. So in SM Entertainment. So the situation escalated when Jessica Jung filed a lawsuit against SM Entertainment seeking to terminate her contract. So this legal battle highlighted the broader issues within the K-pop industry regarding artist management and personal freedom. Now, my question is, what actually happened between Jessica and the SM and the rest of the girls' generation in their non-amicable split? So, sir, what are your thoughts about the creative freedom or artist freedom? Sorry for that broad question.
I know. Well, I self-advertise that I'm an admin of social media anyway. So like I kind of saw that question as well coming. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you're asking me like what happened between them, I don't know. Nobody knows. Okay, nobody knows for sure. Why? Okay, why? Because like the parties involved are being opaque about it. So there's that. Okay, so there's that. But in terms of my thoughts about it, okay, here's the thing. And at least this is putting in as much logic and as much objectivity as I can, okay, into this issue. Number one, SM Entertainment is known for let's say, okay, pardon the language, okay, pardon the phrasing, it's like, it has the ability to turn even the worst person or the worst talented person into a very exceptional idol. Yeah, a very exceptional idol. So they have to do that. And how do they do it? They employ some of the best vocal trainers, choreographers, trainers, dietitians, physical conditioning experts, etc. So that's why they shoulder a lot of it. And that's the reason why initial contracts are 80% to 20% or even as bad as 90% to 10% in favor of the company. Much of the initial cost to train an idol is shouldered by the company. Take note, for Sonia Shide alone, and this was 2007 numbers, the cost to debut Girls' Generation was $2 million per member. So how long did you think Sonia Shide had to work in order to recoup or to get that return on investment alone? That's $16 million. And that's why they were everywhere. Okay, this was in 2007. Nowadays, they're telling me it's 20 to 30 million to debut a group. To train and debut a group. It's 20 to 30 million. So that being said, if I'm putting so much on your debuting, I can understand why I'm exerting a lot of control. Heck, we were also complaining at that time, as much as we were shooting 2 p.m. and Sonia Shide, why aren't even dating? Diba? Why aren't they allowed dating? Right? So if we were complaining about trivial things, seemingly more trivial things like that, what more when it comes to creative control? Right? What more when it comes to creative control? Take note, it was only in 2012 when TTS debuted, when we saw some of Tiffany's, the subunit, right? Some of Tiffany's creative juices come out and being reflected in the concept of Teti So. And it was and Sohyun revealed that for every album, she would submit songs to be petitioned to be included to the album that was self-written by her. Same with Yuri, and they were all rejected by SM Entertainment. It was only until the time when Sohyun debuted in 2017, right? 2017. Right? We don't say no, right? That when you saw her being in the credits. And it didn't take until again 2017 when you see Sonia Shide members being like co-producing, co-writing songs. More so only in 2022. And that was only 15 years later. Why? So I would think because by that time ROI na sila eh. Like everything that Sonia Shide was earning at that point was just profit already. So the SM Entertainment can exercise now, can afford to give the girls more creative control. So let's go back now. So let's now go back to Jessica. Okay, let's now go back to Jessica. Now, alleged because the timing was super unfortunate. Why? It was in 2020. It was in 2014. They just renewed their contracts for another 3 years. They just renewed the contracts, and then all of a sudden it was all being disrupted because Jessica was busy with Black and Clear, right? With Black and Clear. So at least with the little facts that we know, one of the things that we can speculate there is that she was already having commitment issues with schedules. With a schedule. Of course, again, like I said, this is a case of mismanagement. She was unceremonious. What happened on September 30 was super unceremonious. It was super unprofessional. Imagine you're already in the airport going to China for your first Chinese fan meeting, only to be told you can't board the plane because you're being taken out of the group. And then at the back of your head, you already pre-recorded Catch Me If You Can. Right? So yeah, it was super unprofessional at that time. But the thing is I'm telling this to everybody as well. I'm advising you to take everything that Jessica is saying right now, post 2014, as with a grain of salt. Especially if you're gonna quote me the 2 books. Okay, like Shine and Bright. Alright? Okay. Now, actually, that's smart. Why? Okay. From a purely business perspective, that's smart. Why? Because fans would know. It's a tell-all. But of course, it's embellished. But SM can't sue her for that. Why? It's packaged as a work of fiction. That's pretty smart. How unfortunately, I would put myself on record in saying that I'm a little disappointed now because she's thriving on a little bit of misinformation because of it. Right, so right. Because for that matter, like really, would you believe that Soo-young bullied her? Right? Really? Right? Really? Or was that but then on the other hand, maybe that's the reason why that in the last Game Caterer's appearance of Girls' Generation, they kind of highlighted that story wherein Soo-young knew all of the girls' codes in their apartments, right? And then would just randomly, and then just went to visit Tiffany when she wasn't answering her phone, because that would then package her as a good friend, which would really counter what was being said in those books that she was a bully. Right? So, again, we never know. Okay? I stopped myself there. Now, as a fan. Yes, but yeah, so that's the unfortunate thing about it. So now because contracts are shorter, then I guess the return on investment is also a little bit quicker, a little bit easier to attain during that time. And therefore, that's probably one of the reasons why artists are being given more creative freedom compared to before, because one, they can make money off it easier, and two, it's also the demand, it's also the trend. Fans would eat up content more because they knew their favorites had a more direct hand in doing so. Right. Yeah.
Other
Direct hand in doing
questions?
so.
Yes, sir.
Hi Eric, this is not planted even though Eric is my colleague in the School of Business. I'm Manny Manuel III. I was a moderator yesterday morning. We're talking about this whole area of corporate governance and the Korean entertainment companies. But I want to delve, I guess, into finding out how important or how significant is the sixth player, if we can call it that, the fans, in terms of all of these discussions, because we don't necessarily hear about other industries having these kinds of discussions, because the stakeholders aren't as, I guess, prominent or significant as the fans are in this particular case. So just your thoughts on this.
As consumers and channels of free marketing content, yeah, very, extremely. If there's a word that's more intense than extreme, I would place it that way. Why? Okay, why? Why would I say that? It's one of our mutuals, like Dr. Tom and I's mutual, like Dr. and quoting Dr. Seiji, Sidabor Seiji. If there's one thing about Korean wave fans, they grow old. They grow old with their idols. Like, right? They grow old with their idols. Like, come on, college kids here, I'm sure when you get your first job, you're gonna have this trust fund and putting money little by little bit for your next concert already, right? Yeah. I have one myself. Alright? Right? Like X% of my salary already goes to this secret bank account for the next Sonia Shide concert. Something like that. But yeah, no kidding, but I mean that's the extremely. Unfortunately, we've come to a point wherein there's a lot of blind loyalty. Yeah, like there's a blind loyalty, but that the older fans are unfortunately being ostracized if they say something bad about of their idols. So even though, let's say, okay, like I said, I like Sonia Shide, but I like Sonia Shide, but sometimes I kind of wish they come back more for starters, right? Something like that, or I kind of wish that they have this album, something like that, blah blah blah. I can talk freely about them, but the moment I say something negative, I'm gonna get bashed by these people. Okay. So unfortunately, so let's say any calls to, let's say, boycott something, or let's say do some form of protest aside from sending wreaths and banners to the head offices and all, that to call out mistakes, I don't think so. I don't think there's gonna be something bad about it. And just to also highlight how ill-informed some fans are as well. Because I've also seen reports wherein when HYBE went public, a lot of army pulled resources to buy shares of HYBE. And then when it started declining, some of them were so ill-informed that they actually demanded refunds. Come on, guys, you can't refund a stock. You can't refund a share when you buy shares. Okay, it's a gamble. It's a gamble, right? Yeah, so that's how ill-informed they are. Okay, and unfortunately, there is a growing number of that as well. From a coldly capitalist point of view, oh, go ahead, yeah, I'll milk money off of you, don't care, right? But yeah, but in the context of what we're talking about right now, it's a very unfortunate thing.
Yes, one last question.
Good morning.
Morning.
Michael Prila, HYBE University. Very interesting talk. I'm kind of stepping back from all this fan talk, and I'm wondering with corporate governance, and you had all this series, and there's 2-3 things that came to my mind. The first thing is maybe an issue like in many academic areas might happen also in that case. I mean, these are all Western theories.
Yes.
So in that sense, I wonder in how far they're actually applying outside. I mean, these Western academics always pretend that they are globally valid, but in reality, it's very rarely true for any of these theories. And that's also what I wondered for these corporate governments. And related to that, I mean, we all speak about these entertainment companies. So I also wonder in how far maybe entertainment companies might also be slightly different than maybe some other companies. On the one hand. On the other hand, I think it's also important, and that's related to my first comment about the theory, to more think about the culture and the context of the country. Because I think when you look at other companies, and for example, like you said, they're all in legal troubles. That's very much also true to nearly all other company heads that come to my mind in Korea. So in that sense, I'm really wondering, I think the cultural context and all this area might play also some role.
Thank you for highlighting that. And that's actually one also of the reasons why I kind of like threw everything this in your face. Like especially when I said earlier, like everything I saw when I'm observing these 2 cases, went everything against what I've learned in business. And that's probably the biggest takeaway that everybody should get from this one. This is a prime example wherein theories that we've learned that obviously originated from Western literature or Western scholarship. Now you see a completely different side of the world, like literally East Asian context, highly structured, highly hierarchical, especially in a context wherein senior junior structures are very much recognized and followed and enforced. Okay, thank you to my Korean language teachers for enlightening me on that one. And now it's all laid out there. Okay? So obviously the next question here is why? Like why are we see so much contrast of it? There's so much difference on it. And is it simply because of culture? And obviously culture will be the next step there. Okay. But what do we even mean by culture here? Because like there are so many. Every time I talk about culture, I always step on a minefield. I always step on the landmine because they always tell me what kind of culture you're talking about. Are you talking about Hofstede's cultural dimensions? Are you talking about historical culture rooted in history, in religion, whatnot? Right? So it's always a lot. I've been injured more than enough times myself on that matter to talk lightly about it. So thank you for that for that one. So again, this is something it's designed to be in your face and question what we currently know about these theories, these concepts, and how we understand. And also try to link it to what Dr. Tom said a while ago. It's also probably a demonstration, and it's also a demonstration as well of how much of a problem it actually is when fans talk about things they don't understand. Or when fans talk about things from their own frames, points of views, and perspectives that obviously cannot fit with the current situation, current scenario.